Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the Harry Potter books, the Harry Potter films, and none other than Neville Longbottom. More specifically, we're going to be taking a look at Neville's character, and uncovering a few little known facts about Neville that only book readers will know. That's right, things that the films left out. Now, if you haven't read the books, then your next step should be A. Continue watching this video, then B. Buy the complete Harry Potter box set and get to reading. I should also mention that I've made this same style of video for many other characters, including Voldemort, McGonagall, Sirius Black, Dumbledore, the Weasley family, and more. So if you haven't seen those, be sure to check them out as well. I'm also going to be continuing to make them, but for right now, let's focus on Neville. Now, the first thing that I want to mention is that book Neville was a fair bit different than film Neville, and one big thing that comes to mind when I think of Neville's character in the films is that he wasn't really very well respected, at least not early on. The Harry Potter films are serious films. They're not comedies, they don't rely on humour, but that certainly doesn't mean that they're devoid of humour, and in the films, Neville's character is framed in such a way that he is almost a form of comic relief. He's the butt of every joke, and he commands anything but respect. This does change later on, as the films and his character progresses, but it's something that I felt was worth pointing out. But Neville's character wasn't just different in the film, there were also a lot of things about him that were just entirely left out. In this video, I'm going to be highlighting 10 of those things. Let's get into it. Number 1. Voldemort could have picked him over Harry. If you're not particularly privy with Harry Potter lore, then you may not know too much about Sybil Trelawney's prophecy. That is, her infamous vision that she foresaw while interviewing for a position at Hogwarts in Dumbledore's company. It spoke of a boy that would be born at the end of July that possessed the power to defeat the Dark Lord himself. What Dumbledore and Sybil did not know, however, was that Snape, who was then a Death Eater, was eavesdropping at the door. The entire prophecy is as follows. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches. Born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies. And the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have power the Dark Lord knows not, and either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord will be born as the 7th month dies. What's interesting about Snape eavesdropping is that he did not hear the prophecy in its entirety, and only told Voldemort what he remembered. Furthermore, young Harry Potter wasn't the only boy that fit the prophecy's criteria. The prophecy referred to a boy who was born as the 7th month dies, July, and whose parents had thrice defied him. Neville and his parents ticked the same boxes as Lily, James, and Harry, but Voldemort ultimately decided to go after the latter instead. 2. Augustas Respect. Those who have only seen the films probably don't know a lot about Neville and his relationship with his grandmother, Augusta. Here's the thing, Augusta was extremely proud of Neville's father, Frank, which meant that she had particularly high expectations from Neville, even going so far as to give Neville Frank's wand in the hopes that some of his talent could be transferable. Ironically, this wand was actually quite detrimental to Neville. Anyway, when it turns out that Neville isn't much like his father, Augusta ends up being quite disappointed. However, that all changes when she finally discovers just how brave he was in the battle against Voldemort and the Death Eaters. 3. Neville's parents are alive. Neville's parents aren't mentioned that often in the films, and they also sort of lead us to believe that they had been killed by Bellatrix. However, book readers will know that this is not the case. In the Order of the Phoenix, the trio run into Neville and his grandmother at St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries. It's here that it's revealed that Neville's parents are in fact alive, but were just driven insane through Bellatrix's horrific torture. In heartbreaking fashion, Neville would go and visit his parents every Christmas to spend the day with them, despite them barely recognizing who he is. 4. Set on fire. At one point during the Battle of Hogwarts, things are looking bleak. Harry is confirmed to be dead, which results in a standoff between the remaining heroes of Hogwarts and the Death Eaters. At this point, Neville courageously steps forward, an offense for which Voldemort intends to punish him severely. Voldemort proceeds to stop Neville with a full-body binding spell, just before placing the sorting hat on his head and setting it on fire. This is a brutal punishment that I wish they showed on screen. Fortunately, Neville is able to break free. Number 5. Squib. The Longbottoms were a talented wizarding family. This put immense pressure on Neville to perform from a very young age. Because he wasn't able to produce any magic at all for quite some time, it resulted in many of his family members believing him to be a squib, that is, a wizard who can't use magic. Because of this, Neville was put through many tests, including being hung by his ankles out of a window and being pushed off the end of Blackpool Pier. Oh, and did I mention that it was his great-uncle who did this to him? Number 6. Herbology. One thing about Neville's character is certain. He was passionate about and had a knack for the subject of herbology. However, this passion aside, after the Battle of Hogwarts, Neville decided to pursue a career as an Auror, and a gifted Auror he was. But when it finally became clear to him that being an Auror wasn't his true passion, and when he was offered a position at Hogwarts in the Herbology department by now headmistress Minerva McGonagall, he accepted. Number 7. Imperial Curse. In the Goblet of Fire, Death Eater Barty Crouch Jr. uses Polyjuice Potion to assume the form of Auror Alistair Moody. He does this in order to secure a teaching position at Hogwarts, where he goes on to teach Defense Against the Dark Arts. In one particular lesson, Barty Crouch Jr. places all of the students under the Imperial Curse to see how they handle it. Neville performed a series of quite astonishing gymnastics he would certainly not have been capable of in his normal state. 8. Slug Club. Professor Horace Slughorn was the head of a club called the Slug Club, a prestigious club whose members were handpicked by Slughorn based on a few things. If they or their family were famous, successful, or powerful, then they were almost a shoo-in for his club. Neville's parents were known to have been two of the bravest Aurors who ever lived, so of course he had an invite. At Slughorn's first gathering, Neville can be seen sitting at the table having supper. However, in the film, Neville can be seen in a follow-up gathering, filling the role of a waiter. Yes, Neville wasn't invited back to the club, but making him a waiter was an unusual choice by filmmakers. 9. Voldemort tries to recruit him. During the Battle of Hogwarts, Neville shows a considerable amount of courage, bravely advancing towards Voldemort without fear of repercussion. In the film, Voldemort's response to this is mockery. He laughs at Neville and expresses that he was hoping for better. However, in the book, this scene is quite different. Voldemort doesn't mock him, he wants to recruit him. You show spirit and bravery, and you come of noble stock. You will make a very valuable Death Eater. We need your kind, Neville Longbottom. The scene in the film is a complete disservice to Neville's character. 10. Fluffy. In the Philosopher's Stone, we're introduced to Fluffy, Hagrid's monstrous three-headed dog, and an obstacle put in place to protect Nicholas Flamel's Philosopher's Stone. One night in the film, when Harry, Ron, and Hermione are roaming the walls of Hogwarts, carefully trying to avoid caretaker Argus Filch, they encounter Fluffy for the first time. After narrowly escaping their first encounter with Fluffy, the trio are seemingly the only students aware of Fluffy's existence. However, this is different in the books. In the book, Neville is roaming around with the trio, and this is because he's locked out of the Gryffindor Tower. Naturally, because he was with them, Neville also sees Fluffy, and is equally traumatized by the gargantuan dog. Harry, Ron, and Hermione have to convince Neville to keep his mouth shut. And that's it for this video. If you enjoy the content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, remember, we're all going to keep fighting.